Alright, here we go. Episode 1, finally. Probably the most requested series I've had on YouTube since the first Descent. This has been non-stop requested. So we're going to knock them out. I'm going to try and do one every week of Descent until they're all done. There's not that many. I take that back. There's plenty. But obviously, I got to thank all the YouTube members. Thank you for your amazing donations. You guys are absolutely awesome. Don't subscribe to this. Don't do it. Because then you won't get awesome videos that are low quality. That's what we do here at Nerd Nights. But without further ado, let's go. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is obviously we're going to prime the miniature, and I just did Mechanica Standard Gray or a Neutral Gray, whatever kind of gray you have. I use spray paint. I use the Citadel spray paint. You can get all the stuff I use in the comments below. It does help the channel, so thank you if you do that. I greatly appreciate it. You're going to use Morghast Bone. Obviously we're going with the neutral base color with the gray. And then we're going to put the Morghast Bone all over our bone areas. So I'll give you a quick snapshot of how it looks after we're done painting all of the bony areas. For the shield, we're going to use a contrast paint of a Snakebite Leather. Again, if you're using a neutral gray, contrast paints work fantastic. They work better if it's on a white surface, but gray is more my preferred method. For our cape, we're going to do a 50-50 mix of Xerues Purple and Lahmian Medium. This is going to make it look more smooth on there. We're going to build up the colors on there. Even though I didn't do a great job, the cape is kind of all over the place. It's not straight. It's like a straight down cape with just some waves in it. It's all over the place. We're going to use this on the front as well. And I'm using this on a wet palette. Just to speed up the process a little bit, obviously we have 4 miniatures we have to do, even though halfway through this I stopped working on the other 3 and just focused on one. I eventually finished them. We're going to use some Wyldwood on our leather areas, so on the axe handle and the straps that are on the shield connected to the hand. For our wooded areas, we're going to use some Mournfang Brown, so this is kind of the axe, or the shaft of the axe, and then on the belt that you see on the middle of our skeleton. I had to switch brushes in between this to get a smaller size brush, size 1, to get those leather belt areas. For all of our armor, so the shoulder pads, the chest plate, not on the chainmail you see on the miniature, we're going to be using some Iron Warriors. Now we're trying to match the card art or the game art the best we can. I had to look them up online. Thank you. I can't remember who told me to look them up online. They had art pictures. Whoever that was, you're watching this. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can't thank you enough, and I did that. So thank you for that. But Iron Warriors on that, and then on the inside of the axe blade on the exterior of it, we're going to use some Leadbelcher here in a second. Alright, for our other metal areas, we're going to use some Leadbelcher. I forgot to paint the interior of the blade, and you'll see that here in the next little section after this one. So we're going to paint the exterior of the axe, and we're going to paint the chainmail as well with some Leadbelcher. Also, do not forget the shield, the little round portion of the shield, and the exterior portion of the shield. I switched to a smaller brush for this, obviously. And like I said, I had forgotten to do this in the video, so I went back. Painting this with the iron wares and the middle and obviously the large portion of the axe blades. Now for all of our edging on our armor, we're going to be using some Warplock Bronze. Don't worry about that. We're going to kind of change it up with a different color after we do the shading, so if you feel like, oh, this doesn't really work, trust me, it's going to work. Just have some faith in me. If you've been watching my videos, just have faith, okay? And we're going to use Mournfang Brown again on the straps for our gauntlets. And that's it. Moving on to some shading. We are going to start with some Agrax Earthshade. We're going to put this on all the skeletal areas. Do not let this pool up on the smooth bone surfaces. Just do a quick hit on it. If it starts to pool up, brush it away before it starts drying, because where I live, this stuff starts drying really fast. We're also going to use this on all the wooden areas, including the shield that we put the wash on. That'll give it some more depth. And we'll put some highlights on it here at the end of the episode. So work on those wood areas and the belts as well. Only using 2 washes on this. All of our metal areas, to including the leg gauntlets, the chest plate, pauldrons, and axe. We're going to be using some Nulin Oil as well. Don't got to be shy with it. Give it some depth. As you can see, it's already given it a lot of character, as it was kind of bland with all the base colors on it, which most of the time miniatures with just base colors and no shading are. So it's starting to look better as is. Now we're going to start with Morghast Bone again to start. We're going to do all the shading of our bone areas. And you know what, I'm going to be honest, I didn't notice the skull imprint that's on the forehead of this skeleton. I'm sure there's a reason for that. I don't know it. If you do know it, leave me a comment below, or if you have a theory, please leave a comment below for the algorithm, I guess. I don't know. I just hear that. I don't know if it actually works. So we're going to be working on the bone areas. Again, you want to hit up all the raised areas. Do not get into the recesses, to include do not get into the eyes or the mouth. To continue with our highlights, we're going to use Ushabti Bone. Again, we're really focusing on the raised areas of our face. And when you're doing the back smooth side of the skull, do not overload your brush. Again, I will say again, do not overload your brush. You want to thin your paints quite well when you're doing this. Get a watery consistency. I classify it as skim milk consistency. It's got a little bit of thickness, but not crazy overloaded. Do 2 thin coats on that, and the rest of the areas just want to start brightening them up, especially on the knuckles. And again, just on the top of those femurs as well. You don't want to overload those femurs. You want to kind of make a gradient of color. And finally, our last color for the skull is Shocker, Screaming Skull. It's a perfect name for that. We're going to put that on the same areas, but we kind of limit where we're going to put this. More on the teeth, the jawbone, the back of the skull, the top of the eyes by the eyebrows, very tops of the femurs, and your knuckles and fingers of your skeletal reanimate. Very simple. 2 thin coats on this. You can go as far as you want or as little as you want. Just kidding, that wasn't our last color. We're going to use some pure white. We're going to use this very, very sparingly. A little bit on the cheekbone areas, the eyebrows, a little bit on top of the head, a little bit on top of the femurs, and work on your fingers just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. Don't get overboard with it. This could really ruin it if you put too much white on there. So just very gently put it on there. Don't overdo it. Make it subtle. Alright, we're going to now work on that cape, which is kind of a focal point, I think, of the miniature. We're going to mix a 50-50 mix of Naggoroth Night and Lahmian Medium, and then we're going to start working in this to the crevices. We also want to get this onto the raised areas. Don't get too crazy on the total recesses of it, more or less just on the top portions of everything. After you're satisfied with your last color, we're going to do another 50-50 mix of Lahmian Medium and Genestealer Purple. Now we really, really want to focus on the raised areas right here. Put a thin coat on there. Now Lahmian Medium will make it dry quicker where I live. And we just want to put that on the top raised areas. Do not get anything into the recesses. Now you could end it right here and it would look pretty good. But we're going to try and just kind of push it up just a little bit, you know. To get some depth into our recesses after actually doing this, could have done this first. I don't know if it would turn out perfect or well, but I'm just putting some Druchi Violet into the recesses of here. Kind of doling certain areas down that I put too much into. So using this sparingly, or if you don't want to use it at all, you don't have to. I just thought it made it look have some more depth. Alright, continuing on, we got 3 colors here. We want to do half Lahmian Medium, a quarter of the Hoeth Blue, and a quarter of the Genestealer Purple. And we're going to put these on the raised areas, and the raised areas only. Go over it once, and let it dry, and then go over it again. You're going to notice that bluish purple tint that looks pretty awesome in my opinion. And you can end it there if you want. You really could. But I pushed it here in this next frame a little bit further by adding some white. Just a little bit, because this will overpower it tremendously. It's a game color, so if you put 1 drop in there, put about a half. Put it somewhere else and mix a little bit in at a time into your palette and just work on those colors. You can build it up as much as you want till you almost have a white, but it's going to take a lot of time and I didn't want to spend that much time on it. Now that we have the cape done, as my voice just cut out, we're going to use some Necron Compound on a dry brush. Now I use makeup brushes you can get at the dollar store or Amazon if you want to spend a little extra couple bucks. But you can go down to the dollar store and get a whole pack of them for $4. Now they don't last long and the bristles fall out when you look at it, but it serves its purpose for several dry brushes. 20, 30 of them, and then it'll just fall apart. But if you can get 20 of them for $1, sign me up. Alright, what I was mentioning earlier, a little leap of faith here. We're going to use some Canoptek Alloy. It is a layer paint from Citadel. Now this is more like a silver, but it has some pigmentation of some bronze in it, so it sticks out. And I think it looks fantastic. This is actually the first time I'm using this color. I'd ordered it and wanted to use it, so I figured this would be a perfect miniature for this to come on. So we're going to put this on all the edging that we put the Warplock Bronze onto. To brighten up our brown belt areas, we are going to use some Doombul Brown. If you want to do Mournfang Brown over the top of it, again, you can do that just as well if you don't have this color. This just makes it a little bit more red-brown. This is my preferred method for leather belts. You know, I don't know. It is what it is. We're going to use a dry brush on our brown areas, or handles. You can also, and I did this, even though I didn't take that shot and put it in here for some reason, I'm going to use this onto our shield as well. For our base, we're going to use some Garaghak's Garaghak, whatever, you know what I mean. Put that on there and let it dry. You're going to notice some of that gray that's going to stick through there, and that's exactly what you want. While you're letting that dry, take some Fulgrim Pink and mix it with a ton of water. I'm talking a ton of water. Like, it's going to be pure water. And just put a dollop into that eye socket of each of your eyes for the skeleton. After your base is completely dry, we're going to use some Dawnstone on a dry brush. Make sure it's completely dry. Don't do this when it's like, oh, I think it's mostly dry. No, it needs to be dry. And use a dry brush on there. Now, if you're like me, I didn't notice the leaves until I dry brushed them for some reason or another. We're going to use some Dryad Bark on those as like a little base tone. Then we're just going to put some random leaf colors on there. For the first leaf, we're going with the fall look, so we're going to put some World Bearer's Red. Now, you could put some shading on this and then highlight it up. I literally did not want to put that much effort into it, so I didn't. For the other leaves, I'm using some Loren Forest. You can use whatever you want. Again, it doesn't really matter. I'm just using fall colors. Green, red. You could use a yellow too if you would like. It's really up to you. And with the leaves done in some basic colors, we're going to paint the rim of the base. I'm doing it in black. You can do whatever you want. I like my rims in black. Some people like it in brown. It's up to you. But that's it. You got to paint 4 of them, so it's going to take you a minute. But they do look pretty good for being skeletons. Pretty easy, nothing too crazy. They're going to look fantastic on the table when you're playing Descent, the Betrayer's War, or Act 2. So stay tuned. I'm going to try and spit a Descent video out until they're all done every Friday. And we're going to mix some stuff in there on Tuesdays. But thank you for watching. Don't subscribe, because you don't want to see all these cool videos. Until next time, paint on.